Hello, Oscar. Grandpa here. I hope you're okay and that you enjoyed getting home yesterday and enjoyed Mummy's birthday and your trip back home. So it must be very exciting to be back home now with your little sister, Annabelle. So first of all, it's hello from Moosey. Moosey's been very good, obviously missing you, but it's all right because Moosey lets me look after him. So there's no problems there. And Granny, she's just sitting down in the lounge. She sends her love too. So love from us and love to you and Mummy and Daddy and Annabelle. So I thought we would just finish reading. Before we move on to the Mr. Men, we would probably be nice, I think, to finish reading the Playful Panda. And if you remember, Chi-Chi and May were in their new enclosure, but they didn't seem to be getting on very well. And Stephanie, the keeper of the pandas, said they must have been cooped up together for too long. They just need a little bit of space and they'll be rolling around together soon enough. And there's Zoe holding May, who's very sweet. But Zoe and Meep looked at each other in alarm. They had understood Chi-Chi and May's panda noises and knew what was wrong. Chi-Chi thought her sister was a baby because she didn't want to explore and play. May didn't want to do the scary things Chi-Chi did and thought her sister was a show-off. Oh no, the Panda Twins didn't seem to like each other at all. Oh dear. Chapter 5. Squabbling Sisters. As Zoe got ready for bed that evening, she couldn't stop worrying about the little pandas. All afternoon the sisters had squabbled. Zoe had encouraged them to play together, but energetic Chi-Chi had just squeaked crossly at quiet May, who was still feeling nervous in her new home. Stephanie had been disappointed, and even Great Uncle Horace looked concerned when he popped over to the cottage to say good night. We'll try again tomorrow, he said reassuringly. Perhaps the twins are tired after travelling such a long way. Zoe brushed her teeth, put on her orange tiger-striped pyjamas, and climbed into bed. Meat was already curled up on her pillow. The little lemur looked worried too. Zoe switched off the dolphin lamp next to her bed and sighed. What are we going to do, Meat? Great Uncle Horace brought the sisters to the rescue zoo so they could stay together, but they just don't get along. But why, Zoe? Meep asked, his little nose wrinkled up anxiously. I don't understand. I think it's because they're so different, Zoe said thoughtfully. Chi-Chi is playful and adventurous, while May's timid and quiet. They're so lucky, though, she added. I'd love to have a sister or a brother, even if we were really different. So aren't you lucky, Oscar? You have got a lovely sister called Annabelle, and I know you love her dearly, and you're very good at looking after her, and I'm really proud of what you did while you were staying with us, really caring for Annabelle. So someone I could always play with and tell all my problems and secrets is what Zoe said. But you have me, Zoe, Meep chattered happily, snuggling up against her. We play together lots, and I already know your biggest secret. Excuse me. Zoe laughed and pulled Meep close for a cuddle. That's true, Meep. I don't need anyone else when I've got you. She rubbed her cheek against his furry head. But the pandas do need each other. Tomorrow we have to find a way to help them get along. The next morning Zoe ran out of the cottage as soon as she'd eaten a quick bowl of muesli, and Meep had munched a banana. Zoe was desperate to get to the panda enclosure early, before the visitors started arriving. Maybe the pandas will be playing together when we get there, Meep chirped brightly as they dashed along the path. Zoe hoped her little friend was right. As they stepped into the enclosure, Zoe saw May paddling curiously up to the waterfall. Look, Meep, Zoe whispered. She's finally feeling brave enough to explore. Then Chi-Chi noticed what her sister was doing. With a happy squeal, Chi-Chi scrambled towards May and bumped playfully into her. Poor May wobbled and fell underneath the waterfall with a big splash. Ooh, that's awful. Naughty Chi-Chi, Zoe muttered as the older cub scampered quickly away. And May gave a cross squeak. That's no way to make friends, Stephanie. Stephanie had just arrived at the enclosure. Look, there's May. Look, falling into the pool under the waterfall, looking very unhappy. Stephanie had just arrived at the enclosure. "Morning, Zoe," she called. "Could you grab a blanket from the panda's sleeping area? We'll need to dry Maymay. I'm afraid the cubs still aren't getting along." Zoe fetched a fluffy blanket as a very wet Maymay padded over. She scooped the panda up and rubbed her fur gently with the blanket. "There, you're nice and dry," she soothed, making sure she spoke too quietly for Stephanie to hear. Chi-Chi was just playing. Stephanie sighed. "It's such a shame. Both cubs seem to love their new home. Chi-Chi adores the wooden platforms and the ramps, and even Maymay's starting to settle in. But if they don't make friends soon," she hesitated, "then what will happen?" Zoe asked at once. "My goodness, did you hear Granny sneeze then?" "Bless you," we need to say to Granny, having just sneezed. Anyway, moving on. "We'll have to split them up," Stephanie explained. "While they're little, they can't do any harm, but when they're fully grown, they might hurt each other." "But we'd be able to keep them both at the zoo, wouldn't we?" Zoe asked anxiously. "One could stay here and the other could go into a different enclosure." Stephanie shook her head sadly. "I'm afraid not, sweetheart. We don't have any spare enclosures big enough for an adult panda. They need lots of space, you see. One sister will probably have to go to another zoo." Zoe's heart sank. It was horrible to imagine the sisters not liking each other, and it was even worse to think about them being separated. What if one of the twins was sent back to China? That was thousands of miles away. They would never see each other again. Suddenly Zoe remembered something. Sue Lin. Her old friend had loved telling stories about her little sister and all the fun they'd had together. Sue Lin and Bei Young had been separated when they were still very young, but Sue Lin had never stopped missing Bei Young, even years later. Zoe took a deep, determined breath. She was not going to let that happen to Chi-Chi and Maymay. She had to make them see how lucky they were to have each other. Stephanie gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "I'm sorry, Zoe. I didn't mean to worry you," she said. "Listen, cheer up. It's breakfast time and we're going to try giving the cubs some solid food today." She had brought a small plastic box with her that morning and took the lid off. It was full of apple and bamboo, sliced up into tiny chunks. "It might seem silly to bring bamboo when there's so much growing around us," she said, "but until the baby's teeth grow stronger, it's very hard for them to bite into. I cut up the softest, freshest piece I could find to make it easier for them." She gave the box a little shake. Chi-Chi's black nose twitched and she scampered towards them, excited by the smell of the juicy bamboo. Maymay looked curious too, and and followed cautiously. Stephanie glanced down at her watch. "Oh dear, I've just remembered. I'm supposed to be over at Alex's enclosure in 5 minutes. He hasn't had his breakfast bananas yet, and you know how grumpy the old gorillas get when he's hungry. Do you get grumpy, Oscar, when you don't get your banana for breakfast? Or is that more about Daddy being grumpy? No, that's not fair, is it? "I can feed the pandas," Zoe offered quickly, winking at Meep. The little lemur chirped. They both knew the more time they could spend alone with the cubs, the more chance they'd had of helping them make friends with each other. Stephanie beamed at her. "Are you sure, Zoe? You're a star. I'll be back really soon." Stephanie handed the plastic box to Zoe and dashed out of the enclosure. When she was out of sight, Zoe glanced around, making sure no one else was on the path nearby. Then she crouched down and tipped a few slices of bamboo into her palm. "Come on, you two," she said softly. "Are you hungry?" Both cubs nodded their heads eagerly. Zoe smiled. "I've got lots of tasty treats for you," she told them, "but this bamboo is only for pandas who behave nicely." The cubs blinked innocently up at her. "I hope that worked," thought Zoe. Carefully she handed one piece of bamboo to each twin. They both grasped the pieces in their paws, sniffed at them, and then started to nibble. A moment later, Chi-Chi squeaked happily. Maymay's dark eyes went wide with delight. Zoe giggled. This was the first time the pandas had ever tried bamboo, and they loved it. And for the first time that morning they weren't fighting. But it didn't last very long. As soon as naughty Chi-Chi had finished her bamboo, she reached over and grabbed Maymay's piece out of her paws and gobbled it up. Maymay turned to Zoe and wailed. "No, that wasn't very fair of Chi-Chi," admitted Zoe. "But it's all right. There's lots more bamboo for you both." But the older panda was just as cross now. Chi-Chi thumped her little paw on the ground and squeaked indignantly. Chi-Chi, calling your sister a telltale isn't very nice, scolded Zoe, feeling more and more worried. Come on, there's no need to fall out. Why don't you try a piece of apple this time? But the cubs had forgotten all about their treats, and suddenly Zoe couldn't get a word in over their angry squabbling. Her heart sank even further as Chi-Chi pushed her sister over. The playful panda was very naughty. Meep chirped a sudden warning, and from behind her Zoe heard a loud, sneering voice. Fussing and fighting already, I see. I just knew those pandas would be trouble. Zoe groaned quietly. You know what's coming, Oscar, don't you? Zoe groaned quietly as horrid Mr. Pinch marched into the enclosure. This morning was getting worse and worse. So, next time, Oscar, we're going to read the next chapter, which is chapter 6, Double Trouble. So I'm looking forward to that, because we know actually that things do work out and Chi-Chi and May do become the best of friends. But let's read the story and see how they do it. So I'm going to just say bye-bye now to you. Perhaps next time I can read a little bit to Annabelle as well. One of the little books we were reading to her while she was here. And I can read some Mr. maybe a bit of Miffy. And I can start to read, when we finish the Playful Panda, we can start to read some of the Mr. Men, because I think you wanted some of those, you like them. So I really look forward to doing that, Oscar. So for the moment, it's goodbye until next time from Moosey and from Grandpa and from Granny, who's just in there. And love to you and Annabelle and Mummy and Daddy. And again, I hope Mummy enjoyed her birthday yesterday. Such a lovely thing, isn't it, a birthday? Okay, for now then, I'll say bye-bye. Lots of love from us here, and we'll see you soon. Bye.